For all of you who still believe that our better days in Tennessee are ahead, I want to tell you that I still believe with you. And how is it that even now amidst persecution on this Holy Week, after my own brother Justin Jones, Representative Jones, gets expelled from the House, is it that we still have hope and faith and belief in the democracy of Tennessee, faith and hope and the belief in the democracy of the United States of America? How is it that you still have hope, you descendant of enslaved people? How is it that you still have hope? Well, it's because even from the bottom of slave ships, my people this place and tells them that you still.
Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. The two representatives, as part of what has become known as the Tennessee Three, two of them are hoping to be reinstated today. In fact, there is optimism that they will be reinstated today. Still, American democracy has taken another blow to the heart. We're going to discuss that this morning. We have with us some special guests to talk about this, as well as Lakeith Smith. Many may have heard of this young man in Alabama. At 15 years old, he was sentenced to 65 years in prison, really for a murder he did not commit. He was just resentenced to 30 years. We're going to talk about Lakeith Smith as well this morning. But first, of course, let's bring in an all-star panel to discuss the two legislators in Tennessee. We have Phyllis Qualls from the Tennessee Tribune joining us, as well as the Reverend Mark Thompson, who's good friends with Representative Jones, and the president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, Salmon and Sam P.K. Collins. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Mark, we're gonna set the scene with you, and then we'll throw it over to Phyllis. Phyllis is on the ground there in Tennessee, as you have been, Mark. But Mark, we are optimistic this morning that the Representatives Jones and Pearson will be reinstated. Tell us about that.
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. Yes, I am. I'm in Memphis. I'm en route to back to Nashville this morning. It is my understanding that Justin Jones will be reseated by the Metro Nashville City Council this afternoon. Justin Pearson, unless something has changed and overnight, I don't believe the Memphis Council will meet today. The last I heard, they may not be able to meet till Thursday, but just not certain about that yet. That's the last I heard. But the plan would be, in terms of Nashville, for Justin Jones to be reseated by the Metro Nashville City Council before 4:30 this afternoon, Central Time, and then for there to be a march from the council to the state capitol, where the plan would be for him to be sworn in before the evening session of the Tennessee House of Representatives. So that is the current plan that I'm aware of. A lot of people, I understand that every flight to Nashville is sold out. Spoke with a couple of members of the Black Caucus here in Tennessee, who said they've received assurances, and we'll see if this holds up. They've received assurances that both will be allowed to take their seats if both councils reappoint them. They received assurances from the Speaker, Cameron Sexton, after apparently making an impression upon him that this is not going away, that there is a movement galvanizing. As I said, people who called me last night trying to get to Nashville simply could not because flights were booked up. I even tried to get Dr. Chavis here. So this is only going to build and grow. And I think they impressed upon the Speaker of the House in Tennessee that you just can't do this. And this is not a sustainable option for them. And frankly, I don't know that even if they're reseated, that there still isn't a movement that's going to come out of here. What happened last week during the week of the crucifixion of both MLK and the two sanitation workers, and the crucifixion of Jesus and the two men on the cross beside him, to try to borrow your terminology, to crucify democracy with the Tennessee Three, is only going to continue to mobilize and galvanize people. And lastly, for these evangelical Republicans in the Tennessee House not to have even realized that irony. And I say this as a minister of the gospel. You know, people read the Bible, but they're detached from it. They did not even see what was happening in real time, that they were relitigating the story of the Passion, relitigating the crucifixion, and beware of false believers, because that's what you've had in Tennessee, and Republicans in Tennessee are paying the price for it. If not, also the National Republican Party. This is very, very bad for them. So prayerfully, at least we'll get Justin Jones back today and Justin Pearson back in the next few days.
And Phyllis, I know the Tribune down there under the direction of Rosetta Perry is all over this, have been all over this. The latest that you guys are hearing there in Tennessee, and what have you seen there? The national spotlight has been shining bright on Tennessee for this reason. As Mark articulated, the Republican Party really opened up something here they probably didn't anticipate opening up.
That's exactly right, Mark. Good morning, and good morning. I'm sorry, good morning. That's exactly right, Stacy, and good morning, Reverend Mark. It's wonderful to hear you all discuss this. And I think the Republican leadership miscalculated their actions and had no vision as to the aftermath of what they could do. What your mom always told you, what you do in secret, what you in the dark will come to the light.
Yep.
So it seems as though they did not have any anticipated thought as to what this will do beyond them. You know, we get caught up in me, my, us, me, my, and we forget that there's an us and an our and a we. And so what has happened here, they thought of what they wanted. They took a major issue of gun control and reduced it down to decorum. Almost like when the children say, Mama, he's looking at me. You're in the car, you're riding in the back seat, Mama, he's looking at me. So they reduced it to nothing. The crime does not even equate what they did. But as we're dealing with this spiritual holiday here, and we understand that there all the correlations that Reverend Mark just mentioned. I forgot I was interviewing. I was just listening to him, how he did that. To do this during Holy Week, and all of this have happened. You crucified these men. And look, they are rising to a level nobody had expected. They have become the international spokespersons for gun control. The Republican leadership in Tennessee did that. Thank you. These two men have become the leaders, the great speakers, as erudite and articulate as they like to say we can be. Now they are the spokesman for gun control all over the world. All over the world. These two young men who are not 30 yet. So we are hopeful that the city council will meet today, suspend the rules, and appoint Justin Jones to replace Representative Justin Jones.
You know, Phyllis, I have to read more of what you've been writing about this. Mark, she just really simplified it and made it.
Hey,
bang.
Listen, I'm up here doing a theological extrapolation. Forget all that. She just said it. Real simple. It's like kids in the car. He's looking to me. You're exactly right. That's all this is. Just dumb. And you're right. You're dumb. You. And so that's what I don't get. If you understood the story, Martin Luther King was killed in this state, assassinated, crucified in this state. Echo Cole, Robert Walker, their names live forever. When you take the life of a lamb, that name lives forever. History has proven it. So you're right. They've elevated now the two Justins for time memoriam and elevated them to the position. And really, not only that, here's the other thing. As Phyllis articulately said, you not only have made them the spokespersons of this movement, and not that they were pursuing that, they were just standing up for this latest gun violence incident. There'll be other mass shootings in the next 24 hours for sure. But they've also elevated this state as a primary target symbol. Cameron Sexton is now the poster boy for mass shootings. He's even put himself in that position. So we're not even talking about people who are intelligent. So Phyllis, thank you for that. You absolutely.
Well, Phyllis, before we get to Dr. Chavis, Phyllis, let me ask you your reaction and how important. Now, Tennessee, of course, is the home of the original home of the Ku Klux Klan. How important was it that the other Democrat in this, a white woman, say what she said? She said, look, it's obvious why they didn't expel me. How important was that?
I think it's very important. I'm very proud of Gloria for standing up for that cause. Right. There were, my numbers are right, there were 75 people who voted, members who voted against Justin. I think there were 67 who voted against Gloria. So I had done the numbers. So there were 7 people who voted against Justin, but did not vote against Gloria. I know I should be saying representative, but I'm just trying to keep up with myself. So that point is, why did those 7 people change? What was it? Because the crimes that you mentioned and what you mentioned in Alabama, the young man who was sentenced at 15 to 65 years. Why is it that the crime was so severe for Justin and not that severe in those 7 people's minds for Representative Gloria? Yep. So all of those say something. They are little things, but they say a lot. And as Justin said, you just saw me as an uppity Negro. He said that in his speech on the floor in the well. So we got to look at that. We've gotten those words from the 60s, this uppity Negro, this black man who's overconfident, this man who, as I said, erudite. Oh, he's very articulate. The man is bold and brilliant and has a heart for the people. They didn't lie. They did not commit any kind of crime against the safety of the people. They simply voiced a concern for gun control laws to save not just any children, not just black children, all children.
As you see there in the video, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
As you see there in the video, you don't see all black children.
Well, no. Right, and see, that's a part of the problem too. They have also mobilized and radicalized a diverse movement. This was one of the birthplaces of the student movement in the 60s, Nashville, the Nashville sit-ins. By the way, Justin, when he came to Fisk, joined the church of my childhood, Clark Memorial United Methodist, where James Lawson taught nonviolent training to John Lewis and Diane Nash and Marion Barry and Bernard Lafayette and others. And American Baptist College, Fisk, Tennessee State, Meharry, all involved in the Nashville student movement. They've galvanized a new generation of the Nashville student movement with all of these white kids. When we went in the rotunda of the Capitol last week, it was a majority of white students because these are white children that were killed in this space. So gun violence affects us all. And so if this is supposed, and I'm remind everybody, this might be ancient history. When I was a teenager, I was a page in this very house, the Tennessee House of Representatives. Remember, Tennessee was blue. It was blue for the first Clinton term. There were 2 Democratic senators from Tennessee, y'all, Al Gore Jr. and Jim Sasser. Tennessee was blue. So to think that these states are going to just remain red forever also is a misnomer. So yeah, Cameron Sexton is a clown, and I know Phyllis lives here. She knows this more than me. I don't live here anymore, but he does not live in the district. I understand that he is supposed to be serving, and see, that's an issue. See, when you shine a light on somebody else, and you shine a light on yourself, and so that's going to come out as well. He's illegitimate. Justin, the 2 Justins will be reinstated in the districts in which they live and serve. In front of a speaker who does not live in the district he's supposed to be serving. Amen.
Well, Dr. Chavis,
that's Dr. Chavis.
They were elected by their constituents, and these Republicans tried to usurp the will of the voters, right?
Right. Let me tell you, I actually live in the district 52. Justin is my representative. So you get a double whammy with me talking about. taxation without representation as to how long the House is still, the General Assembly is still in session. So they're voting on bills. Are all 70,000 of us who are in this district supposed to go down there so we can vote for us because our representative has been removed? What are we to do? And who cares? And Reverend Mark, I just want to mention, I work at American Baptist College. So thank you for mentioning that. And we molded Congressman John Lewis. We molded C.T. Vivian. We molded James Bevel. They were all taught by James Lawson. So we see that resurgence in the spirit of the young people to say, we will not allow this, or we will not be silent, and we are willing to fight.
Well, I think we kind of lost Dr. Chavez at least momentarily until he gets back. Let's bring in Sam P.K. Collins as well. I know Barrington Salmon is waiting in the wings. There's Dr. Chavez. Dr. Chavez, we wanted to throw it to you on this. Mark, Reverend Mark says you're unable to get down to Nashville, not because of lack of trying, but because there's a lack of flying right now. And Doc, we can't hear you. You're on mute. Okay, so as he works with his system there, he's obviously traveling as Dr. Chavez often does, travel as Reverend Mark Thompson always does, often travel. Sam, this situation here, again, we are, there's optimism, I should say, that both of these young men will be reseated. But Sam, break down for us from your view, this attack, this assault on American democracy.
Definitely. And I use the word democracy very lightly in the sense that America has been anything but democratic as it relates to marginalized people and Black people in particular. If anything, the way that America is represented is through a system in which those who have had power often manipulate that. And we've seen that in Tennessee last year through gerrymandering, as well as in other states. So Republicans have an upper hand and take two out of Tennessee, 3 out was through the power of gerrymandering and just them being able to amass power. And it also brings to mind for me states' rights, about how certain states, particularly those who were slaveholding states, were always able to perpetuate this system of white supremacy, even with some presidents in the White House lambasting them. Because of the way that the system's set up, that's probably the most that they can do. So I will concede that this has put the Tennessee 2 out of the 3 in the national spotlight, and it has elevated them to a status. But in terms of power, I am very concerned about them going back into the lion's den and them being effective at their job, because there's still a majority, and the Republicans in Tennessee have been able to consolidate power once again through gerrymandering, changing boundaries, splitting boundaries so that some districts are not majority Black, just showing different methods through which once again they can consolidate power. So it's always been a long haul game about making sure that certain segments of the population, i.e. Black people, are not able to exert influence.
Well, Barrington, going along with what Sam, piggybacking on what Sam just articulated, Reverend Mark and Phyllis also mentioned too that, this put a spotlight where Republicans didn't necessarily want a spotlight. Does this could this signal a beginning of the deterioration of that party in Tennessee?
I'd say yes and no. What Sam said is critically important, because redistricting and gerrymandering is the reason why they have 75-25 supermajority in Tennessee. That's not changing. But one thing that we should also remember, the Democratic House leader, John Ray Clemens, he said that that Republicans have introduced bills that would take money from sports venues and the convention center. I think like $300 million. They said that they're gonna try to take that money from Nashville and Memphis if they allow the two Justins to come back into office. So this is not over. So we will be celebrating a small victory, but these vicious, petty white men, I mean, if you talk to Democrats in the House, they said this has been a years-long effort to marginalize the Democrats, but also marginalize any voice that they don't deem valid. So that fight will continue.
Yeah. Well, Mark, David Youngblood writes that white supremacy is in the marrow, but a constant program of transfusions will rid us of them.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's white supremacy. There's always been white supremacy in Tennessee, and there's still white supremacy in the South. But as I said earlier, first of all, it's the day after Easter, so I'm kind of called to be optimistic. We will rise again. We will be reborn. We will be resurrected, and just literally in days, these gentlemen were expelled on a Thursday, and they're walking out of the tomb being restored on a Monday. So those good things can happen. And as I said, the situation here wasn't always like this. It wouldn't be like this if not for gerrymandering and redistricting and those things. And so, no, the battle isn't over. It's an ongoing fight, but it's moments like this that I think we have to use to realize that we can't be apathetic or relaxed or expect things to happen or to change overnight. As we've discussed on this program before, I'll give you an example. What they're good at is staying focused on their agenda and their history. We, these days, and this is, some self-criticism, our side has a tendency, if it doesn't happen today, we tired and we move on to the next thing. You can't have an Instagram approach to movement. This is ongoing, sustained struggle. For example, Roe, the Supreme Court upheld Roe in 1973. The right wing fought 50 years to get it reversed. They never stopped. All right. Some of us today, if we can't change it this week, then we're impatient and we move on to the next thing. We've forgotten about what happened in Montgomery, why Dr. King was crucified with the other two here in Memphis. A 365-day disciplined boycott. No one took the buses. People walked, people carpooled. Can we do anything sustained, ladies and gentlemen, for 365 days continuously in 2023? All right. See, that's the question we have to ask ourselves. They're not stuck. They can sustain a movement because, they're evil. Dr. King said it himself. We'll have to. He said there was a certain vigor, a certain resolve in the children of darkness, and he wondered, why are the children of light? He said, we're going to have to answer for our lack of discipline as children of light. And I think he's still right about that. So as children of light, we got to get ourselves together, not surrender, not give up forever, however long it takes. And again, remind ourselves that this state, somehow, how did this state become? The Republican Party has become more radicalized. It has become more right wing. In the 90s, this is not the Republican Party of the 90s. And again, Sexton admitted in this meeting, well, he didn't admit, but they convinced him that he was out of order. But see, they don't care because everybody's playing, and the lawsuit is proving that everybody's playing to a particular audience on Fox News, even though they know that stuff is crazy. We have to maintain this audience because we don't want to lose our audience to one American news network. Imagine that public policy is being decided on the basis of people not wanting to be overtaken by one American news. This is not real, and it can be sustained. We are winning, and we are going to win.
Phyllis, does Tennessee, well, you're there in Nashville. Does Nashville have the resolve? Mark talked about the 365 days of bus boycotting and things of that nature. Does the African American community, more specific in Nashville, have that resolve? You're on mute, Phyllis. We still having trouble hearing Phyllis, but
Greer, can you unmute me?
There we are. We can hear you.
Okay. The resolve of moving forward,
being able to, as Mark articulated, he says a lot of times we will not follow through. We will react to something today, but come the end of the week, it's something else we've moved on to.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. We have a kind of reactionary attitude, and we don't always just stick to the cause. We don't just hold on, and that's the best example of Roe versus Wade. And those they fought and they never gave up on doing that till they turned it over. We have to remember we get a small victory and we relax and we think it's okay because we've done this Burger King thing. We had it our way for this one thing. And we had small victories. There was a part of the John Lewis Way in Nashville that a group wanted to turn part of it, the state route part of it, to Donald Trump Boulevard. We fought that and we won. That was a small victory. That was so small. And then so there are attacks on Nashville proper by this legislature because it is not going along with the Republican agenda. So the reinstatement of the justices, and I want to add, it's not about justice, it's about justice. So I want to add that will be a victory, but then they're coming back and they're trying to reduce the number of members on the city council. They are trying to take over the airport. They are trying to reduce the number, take control of the sports authority. It's like every time you come up for air, there's a big boat pushing you back down, or this shark under pulling you. So what Reverend Mark is saying is that we cannot relax. When we integrated the school system, we thought everything was going to be all right. We didn't have the old books and whatever. That was a fight that needed to continue, which is why the education system for our children is lacking, because we stopped. We thought it was going to be all right. We cannot stop. We cannot sleep. We cannot get lackadaisical. We have got to be as passionate every day about life, not about any particular issue, because we know they're going to throw a rock at our life. Yeah. And if we aren't on it, we are going to be destroyed. And I feel that same way. I'm hopeful. But if it's just a few of us fighting for life, let that few stand tall and stand strong, because we can't.
Phyllis,
I think what's going to help, and what Phyllis is saying is that, again, the issue here is gun violence. And see, they're going to help us continue to galvanize, because they're going to still allow people to get shot. They're still going to advocate for people to get shot. That's the thing that's disgusting about this. That's never going to stop. Now, again, we've got to show some discipline. We thought Sandy Hook would have ended all this, but even that didn't do it. But sooner or later, the people are going to wake up and say, we are sick and tired of being shot at school, in the street, wherever we are.
Yeah, well, Reverend Mark Thompson, make it plain. We know you got to get to Nashville, come up on the top of the hour. Dr. Chavis, as Mark is about to depart, we certainly wanted to get your thoughts in on this as well, Doc.
Well, thank you. I'm on the executive committee. The chair is on the way to Nashville. We'll be there on Wednesday. We're bringing publishers from all over the United States to Nashville. I'm so proud of the young people there in Nashville and across Tennessee. I think Tennessee is going to be a bridge to a border movement, and I'm enthusiastic. I think we're going to keep that spirit alive. I don't think those young people are going to be fooled or siphoned off. I see the movement gaining momentum, not losing momentum. And I think that, Phyllis, thank you, and Mark, glad you're there on behalf of the NNJ. And give our shout out to Rosetta Perry. Let her know that we're on the way to Nashville, Tennessee.
Dr. Chavis is on the way. And
I want to mention
ahead, Mark.
too, Stacy, as Phyllis talked about American Baptist College. I have, even as early this morning, received a message from Dr. Forrest Harris, the illustrious president of American Baptist College. American Baptist College is currently, along with Fisk and Tennessee State and Meharry, the HBCUs here in Nashville, is mobilizing for the long term, so that this is not just a moment, but a movement. This has reinvigorated the spirit of 1960.
Well, Mark Thompson, Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., and Phyllis Qualls, no better three to have to talk about the Tennessee Three. We really appreciate y'all. We know you got to run. We will get some reports from each of you as soon as you're able to provide them. Thanks so much for staying on top of this. Let's bring back Barrington Salmon and Sam P.K. Collins as we continue the discussion this morning. Barrington,
Yes, sir.
I know that you have a lot of thoughts on that issue. We'll, the whole burn it down, right there.
I wasn't thinking about it in those terms. I think one of the things that those Republicans in Tennessee should be worried about is the fact that the majority of the people who have been protesting are white people. So they've targeted African Americans and maligned and done all the things that they have been doing, but the folks who they claim to represent the most are the ones that are opposing them, young people. So I'm hoping really hard that we don't do as our fellow guests have talked about, where today you're all engaged and then tomorrow you're off to something else. This has to be a sustained movement. It has to be, you have to be in their face every day. And I mean, the very idea that you would have people who claim to represent you who are telling you that they don't care if your children die, that should be the best reason to run them sons of what's out of office. That should be, bruh. They are illustrative of a death culture, bruh. I thought that after Sandy Hook, when I said, oh, they killed all those white children, this is going to change. Nothing changed. Nothing changed.
So Sam, how logical do you think it might be to have, as Barrington said, a sustained movement?
It's very logical. By the end of the day, the goal is power. As somebody told me, justice is the appetizer, but the meal is power, because power speaks to everything under the sun in terms of our experiences here. So, in terms of protracted movements, we should never be reactive. The goal should always be to consolidate power. And I think that members of my generation, we know to an extent that we can't have messiahs in the movement. And what I'm concerned about is that the two Justins, that we need more people around them. We need people, of course, they're there to represent their constituents, but they've done great work in terms of representing their districts and putting gun control on the forefront. But people should be emboldened to act in whatever they do to add to the work that the Justins are doing. This is not a 1 or 2 person movement. And what power means is organization, staying ready so you don't have to get ready or you don't have to react. That is one thing that the GOP at every level of politics has on us in terms of their organization, because that's how you're able to acquire power. You got to build systems. And, we're almost there. We celebrate short wins. We got people running businesses, so forth and so on. But it's all about building and continuing to build no matter what.
But Stacy, Sam, you know what was really interesting? Why didn't the Democratic minority walk out with the Justins and Gloria Johnson? They stayed. To me, that's a punk move.
Yeah. Well, you know what? So I will bring Dr. Chavis back if he's still with us on that, because that could have been very effective as well. Yes. We saw that a couple of years ago in Texas, right, with the Texas legislators. Yeah. Is Dr. Chavis still with us? Dr. Chavis, Barrington brought up a really good point. I wanted you to give your thoughts on that. Perhaps the other Democratic lawmakers could have walked out when the two justices were expelled. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we should learn. Each movement has to learn from prior movements, but also each movement has its own indigenous realities. I think there's a lot to learn from what happened in Texas. There's a lot we're going to learn from Tennessee. This is a protracted struggle. We have to always be proactive and not just reactive, and determine and define what is success. But I think the significant thing about Nashville right now, while the eyes of the world on Nashville, is to not only get the legislatures back, but what they are going to maintain, what they're going to do once they are reseated. And it shouldn't be left just to those two legislators. There are a lot of others that need to be joining shoulder to shoulder. The Congressional Black Caucus needs to be joining shoulder to shoulder with these state legislators, and vice versa. I was so glad that Vice President Kamala Harris probably made her best speech since she's been vice president when she went to Nashville at this university. So everybody has an opportunity to elevate and to not only define what is power and what is power for, but to make sure that there's something lasting that comes out of this that's transformational. And I believe, I have faith, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, Dr. Chavis, before we lose you, I want to send regards to you from the Reverend Peter Johnson. He's in the traveling party I'm with. He sends his regards to you. Sam and Barrington, as we move on, Lakeith Smith. I want to talk about Lakeith Smith. He is the young man. He's 24 years old now, I believe. He at 15 years old, he was with two other young ones. He was 15. He was the youngest in the bunch. They were stealing video games out of empty houses. Cops came. They opened fire, killing his friend DeAndre. And the cops killed him. Now Lakeith and his friends were unarmed. Lakeith, at 15, was charged as an adult for his murder, was convicted. The judge passed a 65-year sentence on 15-year-old Lakeith Smith. 65 years. Now, that same judge, we should point out, when two others came before him that particular day or within that time frame, he handed out sentences, and they committed murders of 3 years and 15 years. But Lakeith Smith, a 15-year-old, was handed a 65-year sentence. Just 2 weeks ago, his sentence was, he was resentenced to 30 years. Still, many saying this is not justice. Sam Barrington, this really is what you call not just a miscarriage of justice, but a travesty of justice. Barrington, we'll start with you.
I read a poll this morning about the least educated states in the 50 states. Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. And I just kept on thinking, why would people allow Republican legislators to continue to perpetuate this? It strikes me that every day that Black people wake up in this country, we're under attack by the so-called criminal justice system, politicians. Now with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, which affects Black women. Black women were already having disastrous numbers in terms of maternal mortality, and it's gone up. It went up 40% during COVID. So everywhere we turn, we're dealing with this. There's no way that this young man should be in prison at all. They claim that he was breaking into places, but 65 years. What we have in a lot of cases is a judicial system that's run amok, and they run around with this garbage about law and order, but it's not law and order for black people. It's law and order for them white boys.
Well, it wasn't law and order on January 6th either.
No. So in that particular case, we need to burn it down and start fresh.
Sam, 65 years for a 15-year-old under just about any. Can you see a circumstance where it's a 15-year-old who should have been tried as a juvenile, which he was tried as an adult? Do you see a circumstance where a 15-year-old should be sentenced to 65 years in prison, particularly given these facts? Look, the cops shot and killed his friend, but because of some law in Alabama that says that during the commission of a crime, which may not, a halfway decent attorney may not have even allowed those charges to rise to a felony, they shoot recklessly, really, and kill his friend, and he gets the punishment for it.
Well, this country is very good at adultifying young black men, black teenagers. So, even as young as 7, you're considered a man in the eyes of the law, no matter what you do. And that's the unfortunate circumstance, that we have in front of us. At the danger of sounding like, victim blaming, and I don't want to sound like that at all. I often wonder what we as a community can do better to wrap our arms around our young boys and our young girls so that, they don't have, idle time. I'm not saying that he did what was alleged. I've seen officers lie. I've seen them, do things without penalty, of course, but we're being attacked on all fronts. And what we have before us is somebody who can't even enjoy, who hasn't enjoyed his adolescence. He won't be able to enjoy adulthood, many rites of passage, many milestones. And that just creates more generational trauma. And, especially in the state like Alabama, and it just connects to a whole legacy, that he has inherited. So I often think about that, and I'm not too familiar with the case, and I often think about what could be done legally in terms of raising it to their Supreme Court in Alabama, and maybe even on the federal side. I've seen it done before, of course. I wonder what the next steps are and advocate for that.
It's interesting, Barrington. Previously, we talked about gentrification, right? As one of the things we spoke about. And as Sam mentioned, the community wrapping their arms around an individual, I can't help but to think of when I was growing up, when you were growing up, our neighborhoods were close-knit. We lived in a black neighborhood, and everybody looked out for everybody. But then gentrification comes along, and these neighborhoods become split. So you gotta connect the dots, as they say, right? Take that away, because we even have the Boys and Girls Club, which Denzel Washington still promotes to this day, right? You had little athletic leagues in your community that kept you together, that kept an eye on the young ones. Now all that's gone, pretty much.
I wouldn't agree with that, Stace. I think that the pervasive nature of these organizations is less, but they're not gone away, because I see people every day.
Well, they're not gone away, but again, you separate that divide and conquer, right? You separate the community.
Yeah. But one of the things that I think about a lot, and Sam and I have talked about this, Africans in this country need to decide where we stand. Because if we look at the social mores, the values, the norms that are common in this country, most of them don't benefit us. Most of them don't benefit us. So what are we? So in my mind, we need to do things like what Sam is doing, because Sam is on the ground, and he is providing information and knowledge to communities. He's teaching young people. He's mentoring young people, And I say that we have got to stop sitting down and waiting for massa to save us. We got to save ourselves. And listen, I say it every day. We have $1.5 trillion of disposable income in African American communities in this country. We shouldn't be asking white boys for anything. Not with that much money. I don't see anything wrong with developing parallel educational systems, parallel career systems. There's nothing wrong with doing it. We have to do that because the wider community, particularly being let, the GOP is, well, what used to be the GOP is the point of the spear for destroying Africans in this country. And we can't sit down and wait for them to finish the job. But the biggest part of this is that the complicity of the rest of the society, because they'll tell. I'm always banging white Republicans I know, and I'm saying, you keep on telling us that you're not a Trumpist, you're not a far right extremist, but I don't hear you talking out against what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's there is that saying, right? That silence is complicity.
Yes.
When you're in that, I agree with that statement. When you're in that position, your silence becomes complicit. You're 100% right. But is that also, and I've heard you talk about this before, Barrington, I think I've heard Sam articulate this too, is that also a problem that we have in our community, looking for an ally?
I don't know if it's a problem. I think that too often we're operating from places of fear. We don't want to offend white people. We're running around turning the other cheek. When for me, when I think about the whole idea of protecting and raising my children, our children in the community, it's supposed to be all bets off, bruh.
Sam?
Yeah, I would just piggyback off of that to say that, I do think we look for allyship a whole lot. I think that there's a lot of self-hate within our communities, and that's an effect of colonization. We all have colonized mindsets, and a lot of us doing the work. Half of the work is abolishing that mindset within yourself so that you can spend another day as a self-determined Black person, to be all honest with you. In the case of Lakeith Smith, like I said again, our Black boys get adultified at a very young age. And, even with gentrification, a lot of and this has happened since the pandemic or before the pandemic, a lot of what we're seeing across the United States with young people, carjacking, robbing people at gunpoint, burglarizing communities, a lot of that has been the result of the multi-generational effects of the crack offensive. Because once crack came into the communities, the whole family structure was decimated. Yeah. And right now, the age gap between parents and grandparents, parents and children is just much too small. And attitudes and traditions are not being passed down the way that they should. So I think that at the very base level, before we look to government and, politicians and whoever else, we need to establish the first government, reestablish the first government, that government being family.
Yeah.
Like it's about family and it's about community, and gentrification definitely played a part. And I will say, as a native Washingtonian, that Black people to some extent have played a part in gentrification because of the self-hate. In some cases, especially in the Black majority cities, not saying that they had much of a choice, but once our communities were taken down because of the self-hate, we decided to let the corporations come in and rebuild the communities at a cost to push our people out,
Go ahead, Sam. Finish your thought.
And that when the children are not protected, then that the community is going to miss, because it's about children and it's about elders.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if children and elders are not protected, then your community has gone awry. I don't care what anybody says.
Well, that self-hate is real. I was just looking at something just yesterday. I don't know how old this clip was or how new this clip is. The hip hop star T.I. was on a panel with Candace Owens. And, you know, she was saying, she used that hateful phrase, which we've come to understand. Many of us knew immediately what it meant, make America great again, right? And T.I. broke down to her. She could not respond. And, you know, when you say, make America great again, are you saying you want to take us back to a time with Jim Crow? Are you saying you want to take back to a time where women had no rights whatsoever? I mean, that's when America believed it was great, right? And so we see that self-hate in the Candace Owens and the Clarence Thomas. You know, we haven't even gotten into Justice Thomas and all the ethics violations that have now been reported. We are reporting it in the Black press as well. The Washington Informer ran a story. Several of our papers are running a story from the NMPA Newswire on the corruption of Justice Clarence Thomas, taking basically $1 million gifts, what adds up to more than $1 million from a top Republican donor. So we see the self-hate is real. And then what happens with self-hate? You get the Clarence Thomases of the world who get into positions of power that suppress African Americans even more.
Yeah. But the irony for me, you know, every time I think about Clarence Thomas, I keep on thinking it'd be good to just punch him in his face. This dude benefited from affirmative action from the time that he was born in Pinpoint, Georgia. Went to certain schools because of affirmative action. Went to college on affirmative action. Got into the EEOC on affirmative action. Got into the High Court on affirmative action. And then when he got up there, he kicked away the ladder and said affirmative action is bullshit. Mm. That's the type of stuff that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, Sam, and to Sam's point, Celeste Hart writes that family court divide and conquer for the best interest of the child, still taking fathers out of homes.
Yeah.
That I would imagine, Sam, that goes right under what you were saying.
Oh man, don't even get me started on that. But man, you need that balance, man. You do, you know, to the Clarence Thomas point, he perverted Malcolm X's conservatism when he talked about the whole bootstraps mentality. Malcolm X, I don't like when they do stuff like that. That's my point on that. But in terms of the whole family structure situation, you know, I speaking as a Black man, I think that there's a crisis among Black men today. You know, I think that Black men are being assaulted from all viewpoints. I think that, you know, we get ostracized in the media. We get adultified. We have no agency, or they don't see us as multifaceted figures. You know, there are attempts to pit us against Black women. You know, you even seen it in during, if I recall correctly, even as recent as the midterms, the way that they tried to split the analysis of the vote between Black men and Black women who participated the most. When, as far as I can recall, participation between both genders was on par. You know, so there's always efforts to, you know, ostracize Black men. And a part of that is, once again, the intergenerational breakdown. You know, now mind you, some Black men, they leave the home of their own volition, but when Black men are not afforded the opportunity to do for their families or to be present in their children's lives, especially as a Black man, if you don't have an example, then you're given examples of people who are lackadaisical, people who are inconsistent. You know, there are certain, you know, cultural norms that are not of us, that are fed to us by mass media, that we just take on, and they take on a whole life of his own. At this point, we don't need the so-called white man to do anything to us. You know, it's sort of just like, you know, that's why I always go back to that. We got to have a nation building mindset in that regard. And that goes to everything that we discussed today, because we can't have another situation where we're looking to two people or even three people to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves every day.
Yeah. Just to wrap up the Keith Smith, you know, Greer posted the photo, the graph or whatever you will of the judge and his sentencing. We see the disparity. I mean, to talk about an amazing. Look, this is what Judge Sibley Reynolds did. This guy murdered his girlfriend in a car crash after stealing a car and evading police. Wesley Phelps, he got 3 years. This other guy murdered his girlfriend and murdered his girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter. He got 15 years. David Carr and Lakeith Smith at 15 years old. And as Sam says, this adultifying. Even I see the news clips back then and news clips today say the same thing. It says man gets 65 years.
Yeah.
Black man gets 30 years. This is a child that got 65 years.
But the thing, Stace, because I'm wondering if the judge is appointed or if he's elected. Because if he's elected, we can start a petition or some type to get him run out of office, but he probably won't, because the majority of the residents in Alabama, for example, they believe that bullshit about being tough on crime, and so they're gonna vote for people. And it is a dog whistle, but it's not, because when they say tough on crime, they're not talking about tough on crime on white people. They're talking about tough on crime on black people, because look at all the hullabaloo with the former occupant of the White House. All of these people, senators and House members, and all these folks are talking about defund the DOJ and police.
Isn't that ironic?
and the DA's office, because they charged this criminal with being a criminal.
Yeah, ironic. justiceforlakeithsmith.com. You can go there. There's a petition that has 880,000 signatures to date. They're looking to get to 1 million signatures. justiceforlakeithsmith.com. Listen, we'll continue to monitor this as well. Thank Barrington's, as always, Sam, PK Collins. We continue to keep reading these guys, because that's how you get educated. Thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.